This story begins, like so many others, on a trip home for Christmas. I traveled from Los Angeles back to Bremerton, Washington, to spend the holidays with my family. One afternoon, my sister and I were perusing one of our favorite local thrift stores. She was off looking through the yarn while I was rooting around in the film and camera section. Down on the bottom shelf, I noticed a large tub overflowing with old point-and-shoot 35mm cameras. I wondered, who in the age of the digital camera and the smartphone would want a cheap film camera? And why had the store bothered to put so many out? I don't know why, but for some reason, I decided to look through them. As I was digging through the cameras, I found one that still had a roll of film inside. Then I found another. Then another. Later, at a different thrift store, I found more cameras with film still in them. I didn't understand why someone would donate a camera full of exposed film. Didn't they care about their pictures? I was a little scared by what the cameras might contain. But I was fascinated by the mystery. Back in Los Angeles, I proceeded to stumble through the unloading process. Now, I'm telling you this out of personal experience. If you ever find a camera you think might have a roll of film in it, don't open up the back to check. Just look through the little window. It's easy. Unfortunately, I learned that lesson the hard way, because out of those first 7 cameras, I got photos from only 3, and one had just 8 images. Still, the photos I did get were amazing. A smiling girl, a group of friends out for a night of bowling, 2 young men preparing for a formal dance, and a baseball team relaxing after a win. It was thrilling getting this peek into the lives of strangers, and it proved to be a bit addictive. From that point on, every time I'd return home, I'd scour the local thrift stores and consignment shops looking for more cameras with film. And each time I would find them. There was something going on, something bigger than just people getting rid of old cameras. If I'd found only a few, I could have imagined it was a coincidence. But over the next 6 years, I found more than 130 cameras containing well over 1,400 images, and all from Kitsap County, a small, mostly rural community of just 254,000 residents. Until I started finding these cameras, I'd never really thought that much about photography. It was just part of life. My grandparents took pictures of landscapes on their road trips around the US. My parents took snapshots of my sister and I as we grew. And I took photos of weird stuff I found on the ground. But over the last 15 years, our family, like most of America, moved from taking pictures on film to digital cameras to using our phones. We've gone from mailing prints to emailing attachments to just sending photos and texts. But this shift from analog to digital wasn't just about new technology. The very way we were creating our memories was changing. Because at the most basic level, there's a degree of intention required to take a photo on film that's missing from digital photography. To take a photo on a point-and-shoot film camera like this, you have to buy the film, load the film, pack your camera, pick your shot, take your shot with a limited number of exposures, unload the film, drop the film off at the lab, pick up your prints, select your favorites, get duplicates made. Then, finally, after all that, you can share the photos with your friends. Taking a photo on film is a slow process. There's nothing quick or immediate about it. So when my parents would mail me a photo from back home, I knew it was important because I knew they went out of their way to share it. Now, compare that to taking a photo on a camera phone like this. You just take your phone out of your pocket, take as many photos as you want, then with a couple of clicks, you can share that photo with your friends or the entire world. It's so easy that we often treat the photos we get as disposable. We don't print them out and put them into albums. We don't have friends over for slideshows. We don't carry a collection in our wallets. In a weird way, digital photos seem to mean less. Film requires you to be purposeful with both taking a photo and sharing it. It requires intention in order to show attention. But with these lost cameras, that chain of intention was broken. People made a point to take these photos. There was something specific about that moment in their lives they wanted to remember, something that drew their attention. But as the cameras sat in the thrift stores of Kitsap County, the moments they held were in danger of being lost. Part of what fascinated me about finding these lost cameras was the mystery of how they came to be in thrift stores. It seemed completely insane that people would get rid of what was essentially their memories. Did they forget about the film inside? Did they not care? Was there something about the photos that would have upset them? There's a million potential scenarios, from the fantastic to the mundane. Perhaps the photos contain the image of a lover from a failed relationship. Maybe it just got lost during a move. Or perhaps midway through the roll, the owner got a new digital camera for Christmas. Whatever the case, I imagine the camera sat in a drawer or on a shelf for years before someone noticed it wasn't being used. They didn't want or need it, but it wasn't broken, so they didn't throw it away. Instead, they put it in the giveaway box. And when that box was full of old clothes and cutlery and knickknacks, they donated it to their local thrift store. Eventually, it made its way from the stockroom to the bin where I found it. Finding these cameras was like being on a vintage treasure hunt. None of the other customers or the employees knew why I was buying piles of old cameras. I was in my own special world because I knew a secret that no one else did. These cameras held the photos of strangers, and I'd be the first to see them. For the most part, the photos I found were normal snapshots. They were the sort of everyday moments we all know and the sort of photos we all take. There was kids. There were pets. And there were holidays. But what was I supposed to do with them? It was like I had 100 pieces from 100 different puzzles and no idea how they went together. The only thing I could think to do was to study them. I wanted to know the story behind each photo. What was it about that moment that made it important to remember? So I printed out my favorites on sheets of paper and put them into a 3-ring binder. For the next year, that binder was my constant companion. It traveled with me back to Washington, on snowboarding trips to Mammoth, and to my friend's wedding in Hawaii. As I studied the photos, small details began to emerge. The young man staring back at the camera, tired from a long day at work. The woman clutching her shoulder, at the party, but still at a distance. The picture frames in the foreground pushed recklessly aside so that a photo of a woodpecker could be taken. I placed my attention on the photos, and in the process, I was able to discover the intention behind them. The beauty in these small moments was a revelation, and I wanted to share it with others. I wanted people to look at these photos not as snapshots, but as works of art. So I decided to present them like a gallery photographer would present their work. I took 100 of my favorite images, wrote a short story or a poem for each, and then put them into a large, hardcover coffee table book that I titled Found in Kitsap. I hoped that by placing attention on the photos, I could restore the intention of the moment. That by completing the journey from a moment that was captured to a moment that was shared, the memories could be redeemed. Because it doesn't matter if it's something as mundane as mold under the carpet, as everyday as a cat and a beer, or as wonderful as the birth of a child. The photos have worth because the people who took them thought they were moments worth remembering. They're beautiful because they show real moments being lived by real people. And that's what this is, right here, right now. A real moment being lived by us, real people. We spend so much of our time distracted, rushing at a frantic pace, that we risk missing the small moments as they happen. Now, don't get me wrong, I love taking photos on my iPhone. I love being able to see something and share it right away with my friends. And before I started finding these old cameras, Most of the photos I took were digital. But the journey of found in Kitsap changed me. I began to appreciate the mysteries of film. It's finite. It's unpredictable. It takes intention. Before my grandfather passed, he gave me this. For over 25 years, this camera traveled with my grandparents on their trips around the country. Now it travels with me. Shooting with this forces me to slow down. I have to wind the film, measure the light, set the aperture and the shutter speed. Focus. I have to think about what moments I want to capture, what moments I want to remember. It helps me direct my attention and be present in the moment. But the great thing is, we don't even need a film camera to do this. We can be present in the moment, and it can be as simple as noticing the way the light falls on the building across the street, or making a point to connect with the barista when we order coffee, or just leaving our phones at home when we have dinner with our friends. Life is full of small moments worth noticing, and if we just slow down, if we pay attention to our intentions, we can see the beauty that's all around us. Thank you.